Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make our olive flutter bracelet. This triple wrapped bracelet features a cute butterfly link from Green Girl Studio. Let's take a look at the products and tools we'll need to make it. For this project, I'm using the 24mm Pewter Butterfly Wanderling by Green Girl Studio. I have a 17mm Antique Silver Tapered Magnetic Clasp by Regaliz. I have 24 inches of the 5mm black Regaliz flat leather cord, and then I have a spool of the Superlon bead cord number 18 in Winterberry. For my tools today, I will be using a Tulip tapestry needle. I've got some super new glue. I've got my Xuron thread and fiber scissors. I have an ultra thread zap, and then I've got a plastic straight cord cutter. You can find links to all these beads and supplies in the description below. So let's get started. Okay, to begin my bracelet, I'm going to start with my clasp first. So I'm going to use some super new glue to glue this magnetic clasp onto each end of the leather cord. My ends are already pretty clean here. They're nice and straight on my 24 inches of leather. But if yours aren't, then that's when you'd want to use this cutter to make a nice clean straight edge so that you can slip it into the magnetic clasp. So to do that, I'm just going to take my super new glue and I'm just going to put a couple of drops inside here. Doesn't take a whole lot. Then you take the end of your leather and then you just slide it in there and push it all the way in there until it hits the back side in there. And it will just take a couple seconds for that glue to set up. It is actually pretty fast. So I'm going to let that one set up. I'm just going to unhook my clasp here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So you slide your end in there. Then I'm just going to set it aside for a second and let those kind of let the glue totally set up and everything so that it doesn't come apart when it gets closed back together. And we'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my clasp on there attached, and I went ahead and I found the middle part of my 24 inches of leather, and that's where I'm going to attach my butterfly link here. And to make it a little bit easier to also secure that link onto the leather cord, I'm just going to use a dab of the super new glue to adhere it to the leather cord, and then we will use the Superlon beading cord to embellish the ends there. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of the super new glue, and I'm just going to put a little bit onto the Regaliz leather. You really don't need very much. Pretty strong glue. Then take your butterfly link and place it on top of that glue there. You want to make sure that you don't get any glue where the little holes are at, because that's where you're going to actually bring up your needle to attach the cord. So I'm just going to let that dry for a second and we'll be right back. Okay, so my glue is dried for my butterfly link here. So now I'm ready to add the beading cord. So I'm going to add 11 wraps to each side of my link. So to do that, I went ahead and threaded my needle with about 12 inches of the Superlon beading thread. You're going to take your needle, you're going to come up through the one side of the link there, and you're going to bring it down until you have a little bit of a tail. You're going to hold that tail against the leather cord, and I'm just going to flip it over because it's a little easier for me to work that way. And so you hold it there on the back, and then you're going to bring your wraps, you're going to wrap that cord around your leather cord and that tail. So just going to start wrapping, and you'll want to wrap 11 times around is what I ended up doing. So you're just going to wrap it 11 times around the cord there. You want to make sure all your wraps are really close to each other. They lay down really nice and everything to each other. So just gonna... And you can always kind of squish them together towards the end too, if a few of them have just kind of gotten farther apart. All right, I'm just going to stop and count and see where I'm sitting here. I should be at a good point. And I think it's getting tangled around there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I need one more. All right. So I'm just going to kind of squish them together because I did get a little spacing in there. There. All right. So now I've got my 11 wraps. So I'm just going to flip this over here. And I'm going to go up through some of the wraps that I've made there. You can come out the middle or you can come out the other end. Doesn't really matter as long as you've gone through at least 2 or 3. And you pull that really tight. And again, I'm just going to kind of squish the back there too. All right. So then that one is done. Then you're going to take your Xuron cutters and cut it as close to the cord there as you can. And I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of massage that and cover that up. And then you have this other tail here that you need to cut also. So again, taking your cutters and then just cutting it really close to the beading cord. And if you can't get a nice, good, clean cut, that's when you can use the thread zapper. You can come in and like just touch that end really ever so slightly and clean that up for you. All right, so I've got one side done here. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, doing 11 wraps, and we'll be right back. Okay, as you can see, my little butterfly link is all attached on there, and I've got my wraps on each side, and they're secure. So now I'm just going to do some decorative wraps around the bracelet. And there's really no set pattern to the other wraps. I just kind of put a few, space them around the bracelet, so you can do as many as you like. So to begin, my first one, I did about 9 wraps, about 2 inches in from the shorter part of the clasp. As you can tell, like one part of the clasp is a little bit larger than the other. So I just chose the shorter end to use for my marking point. So I'm going to just measure approximately about 2 inches in from the end there. I'm just going to mark it with my finger. Then I'm going to take my cord here, and again I'm going to flip it over and kind of put it in the back, and then you just take your working end and you start wrapping around that tail. You've got to do it a couple times before it kind of secures that tail in there so that you can kind of see what you're doing. Just making sure that tail's nice and tight there. All right. So I've got it going. I'm just going to keep going until I get 9 wraps on there. It's kind of hard to show you because it's like you have to kind of keep a nice tight tension, but you're just like wrapping it just around the leather cord, just making sure it's nice and tight and everything lays right next to each other. Again, you're just wrapping over the leather cord and your tail, so then that secures that other end there. Until you get about 9 wraps. Then you take your needle there and you come up through these wraps to secure your working side. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off and pull everything nice and tight there. All right, and now I'm ready to cut. So I'm going to cut my tail and I'm going to cut my working one. And again, if you can't get a nice tight trim, that's when you can use the thread zapper to kind of clean it up a little bit. So now I've got my 9 wraps here. So in the same fashion I did that one, I'm going to do 2 more sections here. So from that one that we just did 9 wraps there. And then if you go about 3.5 inches from this 9 wrap, I do a section where it's got 18 wraps. And then on the other side, it's about 4 inches from the larger side of the clasp. I do about 16 wraps. So, but again, this is just a guide. You can add more wraps or less wraps depending on the desired look that you like. So let me get this cleaned up and we'll be right back. So I went ahead and I completed the rest of my wrapping on here. Again, this first section, it's about 2 inches from the smallest section of the clasp. So it has 9 wraps around there. Then about 3.5 inches from that section, I did a little section of 18 wraps. And then on the other side, and it's about 4 inches from the larger end of the clasp, I did about 16 wraps. And again, these were just the wraps that I decided to do. You could do more or less depending on the look that you're going for. And then wrap your little bracelet up and you close it with the magnetic clasp there. And now you have this really cute little olive flutter bracelet. You can find the products and tools for this inspiration design at fusionbeads.com.